Okay, so we were looking at constants and variables in the previous video. So right now we're going to look into type annotations. And I think this is a very interesting thing, honestly, like just to look into type annotations. And the reason why we say so, because obviously as we're coding and we're looking into our previous video, or rather if we look back to our previous video, everything that we typed here doesn't have a type. For example, var username, I can set it to 0 in the future, and that's fine. It doesn't have a problem. It doesn't have anywhere to stop me. Ooh, I see here. So I didn't have to say var. Okay, I redeclared it by mistake. I was not supposed to do that. All right, cool. So now I can... Okay, I'm learning something here. So what I'm seeing is that for the fact that I declared it as a string, because obviously here I declared the variable as a string. Here we declared the variable as a string. Then that means going forward, we cannot assign the variable an integer, because now the compiler complains about it. But then what happens when I just do this? var. Okay, what happens when I just do this? Okay, we know we have the username, but in an event where we have something like var password, and then we just leave it like this, then that means we can say password cannot appear nested. What do you mean by that? Password is equal to James. Password cannot appear. Type annotation missing in pattern. Why does it say this to us? Well, I shouldn't complain anymore. Oh, I redeclared password. Why do I keep on doing this? Invalid declaration of password. Type annotation is missing for password. Ooh, I think what I'm seeing here is that they really want us to now specify the type as we begin. But then what if we do not know the type? Will this work? Where doesn't know this operator? Is there any consecutive statements? Well, it takes any. But then either way, any is just any, So I think when I'm looking at this right now, since we're talking about types right now, because obviously what a type is, the question that the type annotation addresses is what kind of a variable does, what kind of values does this variable store? Does it store a number? Let me do this. Does it store a number? Does it store a string? Does it store a boolean? Does it store a float or double values? What kind of values does it store? That's pretty much what type annotation means here. So now what kind of variables, what kind of values does the password variable store? And I thought, just like JavaScript, one can just wake up out of the blue and say this. And I can see the compiler's complaining here because it really wants us to address this type annotation missing in pattern. So the compiler really wants us to declare this thing as of a specific type. Is this a number? What if I say null? What happens if I say null? Can I then say password is equal to 0? Because obviously I said null. Ooh, it's not happy again. Must have consistent white space on both sides. Ooh, I like that. Okay, cool. It goes with null, but let's see. Cannot find null in scope because obviously it takes null at this point as a variable. Does it require null as a capital letter? Okay, well, it still takes null as a variable. So that means null is not a type, I guess. Here, so that means I can create a variable called null. Let's see. Okay, well, that's what we see there, because we know we cannot create a variable called const. Oh, well, there's no const. Const is not a keyword. It's not a reserved word, but I cannot create a variable called print. Well, print is is a function, Chico. So you can. Isn't that interesting? I mean, can I create a function called print? Which I doubt I can. Print prints. Let's do this and see what's gonna happen. Ooh, okay, let's see. Cannot find function in scope. That's interesting. It will make sense if this is the case. Okay, well, for now I don't really know how to declare functions, so I'll just ignore this for now. So the question is, what is type annotation, and how do we go about it? The idea with type annotation is that we declare a variable and give it a type in the initial stage of its declaration. So let's see. You can provide a type annotation when you declare a constant or variable. To be clear about the kind of values the constant or variable can store, write a type annotation by placing a colon after the statement of variable name, followed by a scope. Okay, I don't know what this is, but it's fine. Followed by the name of the type to use. This example provides a type annotation for a variable called welcome message to indicate that the variable can store string values. Okay, cool. Now I see what that does for us there. Let us see what it does. So in other words, what we're saying string. I don't know what string protocol is. String transform. Are these variables? I doubt though. I don't know what they are, and obviously I don't know what this PR stands for. What it stands for. Eventually we'll know. So that's what we have here. We have variable, we have var password, we have a variable of type string. In other words, we just did this. String password. That's pretty much what I think we just did. I was surprised that it's not giving me an error, but I guess the compiler takes its time thinking. Cool. So that's what we have here. So then that means going forward, I can say password is equal to whatever strong password that I can think about. And obviously I can then print my password. Let's write just here and see. Okay, cool. That's our password that we just printed out there. So I think that's the first part of type annotation. So let's see. This example provides a type annotation for a variable called welcome. I think I read this. I really think I read this. The colon in the declaration name means of type. So the code above can be read as declare a variable called welcome message that's of type string. That's what we see there. The phrase of type string means can store any type string value. Think of it as a means. Think of it as meaning the type of string or the kind of thing that can be stored. The welcome message variable can now be set to any string value without error. Welcome message is equal to hello world. You can define multiple related variables of the same type on a single line separated by commas with a single type annotation after the final variable name. So I like this. Let's look into it. So what we're learning here is that, first of all, if, for example, I don't know, what can we think about? Okay, cool. I'm just gonna say this. I'm just gonna say var. I'm just trying to think of an object that I can think of its properties. Okay, cool. I'm thinking of a box. We know a box has a length, and apart from length, it has a height, and apart from a height, it is, let's say, is it a breadth? I think it's breadth. Breadth. Did I write it correctly? Breadth of type double. Will this work? Okay, type annotation is missing. Oh, cool. It's happy. So now I was obviously conceptualizing an idea of a box, and these are variables of a box, or in other words, these are attributes of a box, and all the attributes take the data type called double. So in other words, we can say the length of the box, okay, is Okay, what's the length of the box? Let's say 4.13 centimeters or meters or whatever. And then the height of the box is, let's say 10. I don't know what kind of a box this is, by the way. And let's say, okay, I forgot a T there. And let's say the breadth of the box is 5. I don't know why. And then obviously from here we can do a simple calculation of the area. Now I'm not going to concern myself at this point with the function since I do not know how to do it for now. But then for now, let's say these are the things. So we can print all of them and say length is obviously a specific length, height, breadth. And we can print these and see what happens. Ooh. Okay, so what if we'll get into that. I was thinking, what if we now want to say the length is this, obviously give it some nice sweet name. Length is whatever, because obviously we know in JavaScript and many of the programming languages we just put a plus, which now is going to concatenate the strings together. But okay, well, let me flex a bit. Okay, let me just flex. Allow me to do that, please. Allow me to just flex. Will this work? We have to work. Oh, I think we need to do this. We should work. Cool, we work now. So that means, I think this is the string concatenation. I don't know why the syntax looks like this, but then ultimately it's a concatenation. So the length is, cool, the length is this much. So that means we can go for the breadth and for whatever. So let me see what's next on the picture here. Note, it's rare that you need to write type annotations in practice. In type annotations in practice, if you provide an initial value for a constant or variable at the point that it is defined, Swift can almost always infer that type to be used for that constant. I think that's what we did in the beginning. Remember how I started by saying var null to is equal to 40. That means Swift is going to infer the type to be used for that constant or variable as described. So now that means automatically Swift declares this variable as of type integer. That's pretty much what I'm learning here, and I think it's dope and it's simple the way that it is. So yeah, I think that's it for now with, I didn't read in the welcome message example above, no initial value is provided so that the type of the welcome message is specified with a type annotation rather than being inferred from an initial value. And I think, with all the variables that we've been declaring, we've always been expressing the type of value that they take to begin with. So we didn't really declare an empty variable as I think about it. So that means the best way to declare an empty variable is to specify the variable that it is going to take in the future. So I think what I like about this essentially is that as much as we try to create, I think Swift is Objective-C because all these things come from C++, but obviously the only difference that I'm seeing here is that they tried to modernize the language by using var and all those things, but ultimately it's the same thing. Ultimately I think it's the same thing. Because if I look carefully, you just cannot do this. You can't do this. It's against the rules of the language. You can't declare variable this way because we know in JavaScript you can do this. So Swift is not JavaScript. It's not similar. So it forces you to literally specify the type of value that the variable is going to take. That's what I like about it, and that's one of the things that I think is cool about it. So we're gonna end it here. That's the lesson here that we had about type annotation. I hope it makes sense. I think it makes sense for myself. That's type annotation here. Thank you.